Derived oral law is when those studying the Torah use the principles that God gave Moses at Sinai to derive information that's embedded in the hidden code of the Torah, so to speak. And God gave us the tools to discover that, and that's a very narrow structure that you have to work within to derive the information. And then we learned about legislative oral law, which is when the rabbis will make either a decree to safeguard written law, commandments from the Torah, or for societal reasons they will enact a law. And we learned how that those laws only take effect if the people can actually live by those laws. I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but I'll give you an example. People ask me about this all the time. I was once strongly confronted by us in a small class by an individual about whether Judaism forbids smoking. It's like, and this is from a lawyer. It's like, whoa. John, you're very mellow compared to the way this guy, I don't know what you look like in court, but we weren't in court when he was attacking me. So it's interestingly, it's clear, obviously, that the Torah commands us, and we're going to actually learn the verse in this week's class, that you're not allowed to do anything to harm yourself. And it's very clear that, medically speaking, I think we have a unanimous consensus by all doctors that smoking is not good for one's health. However, the reason why the rabbis in modern times, I think it was maybe in the early 1900s that we discovered the problems with smoking, the reason why they never forbade it is because it's not something that society can actually stand by. In other words, there are so many people who are so used to smoking that to forbid it would put many people in a situation which they would not be able to stand by. So while anyone would tell you you shouldn't be smoking, there is not an official prohibition. That's an example of legislation. Did I mention this last week? Yeah. So depends on your what type of blood you have. If it's Russian type or American type. There's type O, type A, and there's okay. And then we had customs, which is not legislated by rabbis or scholars, but that is what is actually legislated by the people, where the people begin to adopt a custom of behavior to the point that it is accepted by a society, then that society now becomes bound to that custom. That's what we've discussed until now. Yeah?
Anyway, I know you covered it, you said the rabbis couldn't say this because it affected so many people and thereby what?
Whenever the rabbis want to legislate a decree that the public cannot stand up to, they simply won't stand up to observing it, then that decree never takes hold and then it falls to the wayside. So, and it's happened in a number of cases where they've made a decree and back to Talmudic times and even pre-Talmudic times where they made decrees, and the Talmud speaks about these situations, and the people couldn't stand by it. And so therefore it fell to the wayside. Whereas another decree, by example, they made a decree, we know that you cannot eat chicken and dairy. And there was an argument, which is what tonight's class is all about. There was an argument about that. But the community upheld that, and therefore it became a decree. Yes?
There are people, I think mostly in Israel, who are looking for a hidden Torah content in numerology. There's something to it, or it's hot air?
There's something to it, but we never derive law from that type of study. So briefly to answer your question, and then we're going to jump into tonight's class, there are 4 levels of Torah study. Okay? When you study the Torah, you can study it on 4 levels. There's something called pshat. Pshat means the simple meaning of the Torah, what the Torah is telling us on its literal level. And when I say literal, I don't mean literal without any type of oral law explanation, but literal in its practical sense. Okay? Then there's remez. Remez are hints, where the Torah alludes to different things. Okay? And then you have drush, which is It's sort of like what I would describe as a rabbi's speech or sermon, where he'll take a concept in the Torah and say, from this we can learn how to, how to behave in our lives. Okay, and then you have sod, which is the esoteric, the mystical interpretation of the Torah. Only the first level is the level that we use in order to derive Jewish law, to understand what Jewish law is, how to behave according to Jewish law, how we're required to behave. All of the other forms of study are very fascinating forms of study, and we may spend a lot of time in those areas as well, but they don't pertain to practical observance.